Hey there, everyone. I would like to introduce you to our guest today. Her name is Tenicia Talley, and she is a pharmacist. Tenicia, I'm going to do a little intro, and then I'll let you kind of jump into your story. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
All right, everybody. So, Tenicia is a clinical pharmacist and a freelance health writer for companies looking to engage with Black audiences. She cites increasing medical misinformation online as her reason for getting into health content writing. I want my reader to feel like someone finally sees and understands what they're going through, Tenicia has said, because many minorities feel unseen and misunderstood by healthcare professionals. She hopes her cultural and professional experiences can provide a unique voice to use in her writing. So currently, Tenicia is a clinical formulary pharmacist for CareSource, writing medical policies for over 2.2 million members. And she is also president-elect for the Georgia chapter of the Academy of Managed Care Pharmacy. So again, welcome to this little space, Tenicia. Really
Thank
excited to
you.
have you here. Also, not in her bio is that Tenicia will forever hold a special place in my heart because she was one of the first students to enroll in the very first
Oh,
cohort of health professionals to health writers in January of this year. So she's a real one forever because she trusted me from the
yes.
very beginning, and I will forever be grateful for that. So welcome, Tenicia.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Awesome. Okay. So, one of the things that happens when folks apply to the program is that I ask them a whole lot of questions because I love to get a sense of like where they're coming from, what their experiences are, and why they have interest in the health content marketing, health content writing space. And when you applied, I remember that you shared you were interested in translating your passion for improving health literacy in Black communities to a small business container. Like how do you kind of meld that passion and interest that you have
Right.
and
Yep.
also create a small business from it? So can you tell me more about like what that motivation was like and what made you interested in health content writing as the path to do that with?
Yeah. So I knew that. So my job in managed care is not patient facing. So I don't interact with patients. If I do interact with anyone, it's all providers. And so I used to work sometimes in the ER doing medication reconciliations and stuff like that as a new pharmacist. And I really missed that patient interaction. And so when the pandemic started, I kind of felt like I should be doing something more in the public health emergency type space. And so I remember as a pharmacy student, I had noticed that you had been in the realm of public health, and I kind of watched your evolution into health content writing. And that was something that I felt like was really important at the time, and it was something that I wanted to get into, but I just didn't really have a clear idea of how I wanted to do that. And so at first, I kind of did like some consulting when I decided I wanted to kind of like do something on the side. And then it kind of like evolved into when I was working with my business coach, more like one on one things, what type of product that I want to have. Like she kept asking me that. And I couldn't really give her an answer because I didn't realize at the time it was health content writing until I started looking at your videos on LinkedIn. And so the more I watched you, the more I was like, this sounds like me. This sounds like something that I can get into. And so when I had my first conversation with you and I told you my frustrations as a Black pharmacist in a pandemic, you understood where I was coming from. And when I was giving you like my path and my ideas and things like that, you told me, hey, I see that you're giving ideas on like a more one-on-one scale, but have you ever thought about having a business on a larger scale that touches more people at the same time? And when you told me that, it kind of blew my mind because I realized that I was thinking on a small scale and I was putting myself in a box. And I never really thought about it that way because most pharmacists that have a business on the side, they do get into consulting, touching patients on a one on one basis and not necessarily touching multiple people all at once. And so that was really something that caught my attention. It stuck with me. And I knew I had a message that I wanted to get out, and I knew I had people that I wanted to reach specifically. I just didn't really know how to do that. And your program kind of showed me the light and showed me how I can have a targeted purpose with a targeted audience. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's really affirming to hear, because I think that it's definitely possible to, especially when you're a pharmacist with kind of this entrepreneurial mindset, you're paying attention to what's going on in that landscape and in that world. But a lot of times you see people doing things or starting businesses that don't necessarily correlate to the impact that you're trying to have either
Right.
on healthcare or on public health, because like you said, the scale is different, the reach is different, the relationship is different. So it's really exciting to hear that seeing what I was doing through Stock Rose kind of opened your eyes to what was possible to do with the mission that you had, which is very closely aligned with the reason that I got into this space in the first place, right? Fighting health misinformation online, especially for Black audiences. Like our niches are also very similar.
Yeah.
So to clarify for folks, did you have prior writing experience before coming into the program?
I didn't. And so what set your program apart from everyone else's was when I looked online for people that were doing like writing and for people who were in more of that entrepreneurial space, they had a business type of background, but they didn't necessarily have that provider experience. They did not do anything in healthcare. And so it was kind of hard to navigate trying to have my own business as a pharmacist when I would try and have different ideas, and I would be talking to business coaches and things like that, and they had no idea what I was talking about. And so it was a gap there, because they could, like, one of my business mentors writes for Forbes. But she does not do anything in the realm of healthcare. So it was a gap there when she was trying to guide me through, okay, what types of packages do you want to have? What type of voice do you want to have? How do you find your niche? There was a gap there because I couldn't really delve into that with her. And so that's what really set your program apart from all of the other writing coaches, business coaches that I had in the past, was you actually had the health content writing experience, and you also had pharmacist experience. And I think that's really important because not a lot of pharmacists get into that space where you kind of, put yourself out there on a very public platform. Most of us kind of, hide behind the counter or the computer. Like, we don't really like that extra, spotlight being on us. And so I think you were the first one that kind of like really pushed me to, grow my platform and things like that. So, yeah.
I ran into that same issue like when I was in the beginning stages as well, and trying to figure out like, okay, what do I need to do? What am I doing? Like, because you're kind of figuring out as you go along. And I have a business coach that I've worked with consistently since 2018. She's amazing. I love her to death. Wouldn't have been able to find my way without her. But at the same time, that gap that you're talking about is so real, because a lot of, like, on the business side, I had everything that I needed to know from her. I had all the support that I needed. But a lot of times those same philosophies don't translate in the same way when you're dealing with something like healthcare or public health.
Exactly.
And so that half of the equation, like, I had to fill in all of those blanks on my own. And the thing that I had on my side is that I come from a public health background. I had writing experience. So I feel like I had a few more resources to figure it out more efficiently than someone like you or most of the other students that have come through the program who don't have any writing experience. Like, that's not your background. That's not your space. So filling in that gap is even more difficult when you don't really have any foundation to jump off of. So that was very intentional, was like building something that supported folks on both sides of that spectrum, like the business of freelancing and also the art of it, kind of the science and the art of it.
Right. Yeah. And it really is an art to writing because, in pharmacy school, we're trained on how to have face to face counseling. You have counseling competitions and all of that. And I really like that one on one face to face contact because I get feedback from you, right? So I can know, hey, you are getting what I'm telling you because I'm having you repeat it back to me. I can let you know that I care about you and I see you and I understand you by having that eye contact with you, or you can tell from the inflections in my voice, how I'm feeling about you and that I care as a provider. Whereas the art of writing is something that is completely different for me because I feel like I have to get it right the first time. When I started, I was like, I had so much pressure to get it right because I'm battling so much misinformation out there.
Yeah.
Misinformation is more entertaining. It travels farther, deeper than a lot of the health content that's out there. So I have to be able to get my words across to you in a way that you understand, in a way that you feel what I'm saying to you without having that one-on-one contact. And it really is an art that I'm still learning, but definitely an art.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely a work in progress. Did you feel like, so let's think about phase 3 of the program, right? Which
Yeah.
is that portfolio phase when you're really diving in and you're writing. And for you, that was like your first time writing, a blog post that was geared towards a lay audience.
Yep.
So how did you deal with that pressure that you just described? Like, how did you, I guess, work through whatever beliefs that you had or other emotions that you had going through that phase in order to make sure that you weren't stifling yourself or getting stuck in that paralysis analysis kind of situation?
Yeah, I think for me, actually, when I first started my very first blog, I did get writer's block because I felt all that pressure. I think I was putting way too much pressure on myself. And it was kind of that feeling of when you first become a pharmacist and you realize, oh my God, I'm out here on my own. Like, am I going to mess this up and I'm going to kill somebody, And you have to find that confidence and you just have to be confident in yourself and in your skills and know this is what I went to school for. All of these years, this is what I do. And whatever I put out is going to be fine. I just need to put it out there and I need to have confidence in myself. And I think, just going back to how I was able to overcome being a new pharmacist is kind of what helped me get over that when I'm doing writing, health content writing for the first time. Because, you can be very sensitive about any types of feedback, especially in today's climate where when you put things online, there are trolls out there, there are people out there that say you don't know what you're talking about, or, just all types of things. You never know how it's going to be received once you put it out there. And I think that was the scariest part because I was like, I don't know how people are going to receive when I'm telling them. And so I think it was very scary, but at the same time, very freeing because it was another way for me to push myself as a pharmacist to be able to reach patients. So, yeah.
Yeah. And what I loved about working with you in that particular phase was also like I could just see your passion coming through. Like I could tell how much time and care you actually put into the researching of your blog posts and the outline and really finding your voice and making sure that you were speaking directly to the person that you were trying to speak to.
Yeah.
I really appreciated that you did just like put it out there and you were open to feedback. And as I always warn y'all up front, like it's going to be a lot of track changes.
Right.
Because that's how it works in real life when you're working as a freelancer. But is that you don't have to have it perfect the first time because that is what the editing process is for. That's what the back and forth is for, so that it's more of a communal togetherness and getting that piece to reach the full potential that it can. It's not just like on you to sit down and knock out this piece in 2 hours and then that's it. Open yourself up to the wolves and pray that everything is okay.
Yes, and that is a real fear because, like I said, I think as healthcare providers, we are taught to feel that we aren't creative, that we can't be creative. We work in the facts, and that's it, facts,
Mhm.
data, numbers, and figuring out how to put a creative spin on that is just something that we're not used to, and we're not trained on how to showcase that creative side.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something that I feel like is a muscle. And, the more that you just write, period, spending time writing every day, flexing that muscle. Like you said, I think the first time that I worked on my first blog post, it took me forever. I thought I was going to sit down and it was going to be like college where I just like wrote the paper in a couple hours and then be done. But it's like, no, you need to fact check, you need to have your references and all that together. And it's a different type of writing than just, writing something for your English class and just passing it off. Like you can't do that. And so it's definitely a muscle that you just have to keep working so that you can get better each time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I so agree with that point about the creativity. And I think it's also important to underscore why that creativity is important. Like it's important for us as the freelancer, right? Because it gives us a
Mm-hmm.
chance to, like you said, work that muscle, work a different part of our brains. But it's really important for the audience and the people who we're trying to communicate this information to, because the creativity, that's where the storytelling comes in. That's where the anecdotes come in. That's where like the things that you build around the facts that make the facts more palatable to
Mm-hmm.
like get through and penetrate someone's brain and like
Yep.
inspire them to take action. That's why that creativity is necessary. That's why the storytelling is necessary, because
Mm-hmm.
me and you, we can talk about the facts all day. That's interesting
Right.
to us. We're scientists, we're nerds, we're pharmacists. That's what we do.
Right.
That's not interesting to everybody else. They're not
Right.
going, that's not going to work. That same approach won't work. So the creativity is not just like a skill for us just because, oh, it's something else to do aside from what we normally do in our pharmacy jobs. It's essential in order to really fight against the negative
Mm-hmm.
narratives, the negative stories, the false information that's being communicated to people, and really help them understand like what the facts are and why the
Yep.
facts are relevant to their life.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the things that drew me to health content writing over other types of writing, medical writing, writing for a journal, all that stuff, because it was so interesting during the pandemic. Because I studied about mistrust of the medical community and the Black community, but then when the pandemic came out and like my family and friends were looking at me and questioning me about medical information, it was such a weird space because these were the same people who was at my graduation, who congratulated me for being a pharmacist, was like, yes, we need more representation in the community. But then you're critiquing me once I start to get into it. And so it was just really interesting because most of the health content that my friends and family were getting and making medical decisions from was like people who didn't have a health background. They were selling products and they were like, hey, I don't want you to get this medical stuff, but I want you to buy my all natural product that I just made in my kitchen. And, they were believing these strangers who had just become experts in the last month or so in healthcare over me, which you've known all my life. You've seen me study and get into debt and all this stuff over, and it was just a weird space to be in. And so that's why it was another thing that helped me, because I was like, I got to do something to help my family and friends, because me talking to y'all like this is just not working. So I need another avenue and I need to reach more people, because it was just so interesting to see people believing what was online because it was entertaining.
And so
Yeah.
sad. Like
Yeah.
I'm literally holding back tears because this whole pandemic, it's just been like that point that you made about y'all know me, y'all
Right.
supported me, y'all came to my graduation, y'all,
Yes.
all these things, but then at the same, like you're discounting everything,
Yes.
you're distrusting me because like that dissonance, like that is I'm still struggling to wrap my mind
Yes.
around it, to be completely honest. And it's
Yes.
hurtful.
It
Like
is.
it's hurtful.
It
Um,
is. It is definitely hurtful. And, I I just have to keep reminding myself to be patient. And I think that's where that empathy needs to come from, because I understand the background and the reasons for why there is so much mistrust. And so I try to use that whenever, and I'm picturing these people in my mind. And so when I am doing my health content writing, I am picturing that person in my mind, and I am writing specifically to that person.
Yeah.
And that helps me as well, to be able to navigate and get over that writer's block, because it gives me a greater purpose in what I'm doing. And it reminds me how important representation is in these spaces. Because, I mean, my husband has been a vegetarian for 15 to 20 years now. And back when he was a vegetarian and would tell Black people that he was a vegetarian, they would look at him like, oh, you're just eating rabbit food or something, like what's happening? But now, there's kind of like, a lot of people feel like there's a Black renaissance right now, where more emphasis is put on wellness, more emphasis is put on, yoga and veganism as a lifestyle. But there's also a undertone of rejecting Western medicine with that. And so I go into those spaces intentionally so I can understand. So even though like it's painful for me to see so many people that I care about have and believe this misinformation, I have to keep exposing myself to it so that I can see it, I can understand it, and then I can start to develop my response to it. So.
Yeah. And I think that's so important, because I think that is a negative, or like something that we as healthcare professionals don't do really well.
Yeah.
Is finding like points of commonality and points of intersection where we
Yeah.
can come together, instead of it having to be an either or,
Right.
It doesn't have to be either or. People don't live either or lives. But I think if we're able to better communicate,
Right.
how Western medicine, how medications, how pharmacy, whatever, can integrate with some of these other types of wellness techniques and wellness approaches, that would be a much more effective way to make some headway and some forward movement, rather than completely ostracizing those types of practices. Because
Right.
when we ostracize those practices, we're also pushing away the people who want to incorporate those things into their lives. And that,
Exactly.
when you're looking at that from a public health perspective, like that's not sustainable. That's
Yep.
not helpful to any community.
Absolutely.
So a question, more of a practical question. I know you didn't have writing experience coming into this, and at something that we kind of get a crash course in as soon as you start the program is like that it's not just writing, right? That health content writing is a part of a larger content marketing landscape.
Yes.
So how is that for you, like having to learn not just the specific type of writing that goes along with health content, but the marketing ecosystem that wraps all around it? What was that learning process like for you?
Yeah, I think that was definitely a huge learning curve for me as well, because just like I don't have a background in health content marketing, I don't have a background in business or marketing either. Like, I mean, all of this is new to me. Everything that we were doing, every step was something that I was curious about, but I had no idea where to start. I had no idea how to put together a package, how to come up with pricing. What was I going to say to people? How was I going to keep all my meetings organized? Like, I had no idea how to do any of that, because with my organization and people that I work for, that's already set up for me. But when I'm starting my own business, I have to do all of that myself. And so just learning about that has just been a great experience for me as well. And that was something that I needed, because it's not just the writing. Like you said, it's a whole process, it's a whole package that you have to put together. It's more than just sitting down and typing and then pressing submit. There's like a whole process behind it, and I really did not know how to do any of that.
You caught on so well, and you really dove in there with no hesitations and did what you needed to do to be successful with it. So you're about 8 months out of the program now. Is that accurate? Okay.
Yeah.
And how, in that time, since you finished everything, since you started working with clients, how has your professional outlook or trajectory changed in regards to freelancing or in regards to the full-time work that you do as a pharmacist?
Yeah, I think that it's helped me become more comfortable in my niche. So I wasn't really, when I came up with my niche, I wasn't sure how profitable it would be. I wasn't sure if companies would be interested in me putting a racial spin on things. I wasn't sure, how it was going to come across. I knew that I wouldn't be for everyone. And so it really helped me become more confident because, my editors and things like that, when I met with them and I gave them some of my ideas, they were like, oh my gosh, this is perfect. I can't wait to work with you. And they are giving me other topics as well. And they're like, okay, you submitted this, but I have some more topics and some more companies that are looking to collaborate with us. Would you be willing to write this? And I think that has really been a great surprise for me because, like I said, I was nervous because I had a couple of different niches that I considered more safe, I guess. And so, but I still decided to go with this one because it was where my passion was. And so it's definitely been great because I really realized that there's a really big push for diversity, equity, and inclusion content. And so I'm finding that I am evolving a little bit more. And so not only am I writing for a Black audience, but I'm writing for communities of color. And I think eventually it will lead me down a path of anyone who is marginalized, kind of taking a step back, looking at that and seeing how I can shine a light on these topics that people need help with, but no one else is talking about.
Yeah. That niche that you chose, I remember coaching you around that because it was so similar to my niche, right?
Yeah.
But I think I told you, like, it took me a long time to get to the point where I felt comfortable saying, this is actually the audience of people that I want to write for. And by a long time, I mean 3.5 years. Like, it took me that long to settle down into where I felt like, oh, this is where I was supposed to be this whole time. And like that happened. It's a part of the process.
It is.
Sometimes I really love that you had grace with yourself as you were kind of in that space of exploration. One, that you had the courage to go for it, but also that you had grace for yourself and really encouraged yourself to think about the different options and where you want it to be. Because even if we start out in a place that's like, I don't know if this is the right one, but I'm gonna try. We're gonna see. That's still something. That's still starting. So I really, I'm really glad to hear that you've found confirmation that that was a great space for you, and that you can see how that moves you forward in the future. I guess one of the final questions that I want to ask is, what do you think made this program something that you would consider like a success for you? I know that you got your first clients by the end of the program. You have lots of other opportunities. You doubled your investment. You have this new writing job as a full-time role. What did you define as success coming into the program, and how were those metrics met or not met for you in your case?
Yeah, I think that through this process, I gave myself a platform. I think that was something that was missing. I knew that I had a voice and I had something to say, but I hadn't figured out and really honed down how I was going to use it, what I was going to say, things like that. And so this process really opened me up to the fact that, there are people that look like me, that, like I said in my intro, that aren't seen, that aren't heard, that feel misunderstood. And when I am sitting down and I'm writing, I'm letting you know through my voice that I see you, and, you are cared for, and, you don't have to be perfect. I'm not judging you for having these problems. A lot of the topics that I write about, I think people think that it's kind of taboo to kind of talk about these things. They're embarrassing issues that people may not feel comfortable talking about. And so just being able to find that voice and know that it's unique, but it's still important and deserves to be heard was definitely the biggest and the greatest takeaway that I had from the program. And I think that it's hard, right? Because I am doing this on the side. So I'm in a pandemic right now. I have a whole husband, a whole daughter, a whole house to take care of. Plus, I still have my full-time job in the corporate world. And so really being able to navigate and making the time, right, to be able to really nurture this burgeoning business the way that I want to has definitely been the biggest challenge. I wish I had like 46 hours in a day instead of 24. You know what I mean? And so that's definitely the biggest challenge because I do eventually want to take on more clients, but I'm having to stop myself, slow down, and say, okay, don't bite off more than you can chew, master this one client right now, and then you can explore others. Because I do have others on the horizon that I do want to work with, but just finding that balance as a new writer and not overbook myself has been a good surprise, but still a challenge at the same time.
Yeah, it can be a little bit frustrating sometimes because like, you kind of feel like Ariel and the Little Mermaid, like, yep. I want more. Yeah. But I don't have time for more. Right. But I think one of the beautiful things is, and the reason why I think it's so important to like just start, even if you don't have 46 hours in the day, right? Yep. Because you starting this journey at the top of this year, you're now 10 months in, 10 months of experience that you didn't have before. Yep. That's going to keep compounding over the future months so that if time does like make itself available to you, or if you do find more time to work on it, you now have all of these months and as they accumulate years of experience that you can use when you're going out for those clients of interest or those prospects of interest. So it's kind of like the compound experience that you're gaining, even though you only have a finite amount of time to work on this right now.
Yeah. Exactly. And so, yeah, I'm really excited. As I think I know at least one person that's in your cohort now. And so it's encouraging to me because I feel like, okay, well, maybe they saw what I did and they see that it's something that's obtainable, like it's something that
people come to me and say, oh, I know Tenicia.
Yeah. Yes, I've had people ask me. And so it's really encouraging because like I said, you're definitely doing something groundbreaking with your program because a lot of pharmacists may feel that they want something a little bit more from their career. They want to try out different things. And I think that this is a great way for them to kind of figure out what type of path they want. Because, you make up your own niche, it's not something that's dictated for you. So you really get that freedom to explore how you're going to practice as a pharmacist in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. With this new group of students who will be beginning the cohort in January, I know that, before you start a program, it can be like, how am I going to do? Can I really do this? Did I make a mistake? What would you say to the students who are going to be joining the January cohort? Anything that you feel like was helpful to know moving into it or that you wish you would have known or been prepared for?
Yeah, I think, like I said, I was surprised at how hesitant and fearful I was to share the medical knowledge that I had. And I think that was really surprising to me because, like I said, coming from a background where I counseled patients all the time in the hospital to now trying to get a bigger platform, it was scary for me. And I think that was something that was really surprising. And like you said, I know that a lot of us are perfectionists, right? We're type A personalities. And, being able to have your work and your thoughts and things like that critiqued, and knowing that, you don't have to be perfect, you don't have to know everything, you just have to have a willingness to start, is really the biggest thing that you need. Has been one of the biggest learning lessons for me. So just do it. At some point, you can't let fear of the unknown deter you from your purpose and the things that you have for the future. And in the end, it'll make you a better pharmacist, a better healthcare provider because of it. So just go for it.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing all of your insight and wisdom and advice. Whenever I see you posting your articles and your bylines, I'm always like, that's so I'm super proud of you. And I know that like your freelancing journey and your journey in health content marketing is just going to continue to evolve and go up from here. And I'm excited to watch that happen. So thank you.
Yay, thank you. And congratulations to you on keeping this going. You're getting bigger. Your platform is getting bigger. So, girl, you're going to blow up. I'm so excited.
Thank you.
All right.